Alright, hello everyone, my name is Central. Welcome to pretty much my brand new YouTube channel. This is going to be basically my first time ever recording anything, and so I'm sorry if I'm incoherent at all or if I'm not very, excited or passionate sounding about the stuff I'll be talking about today. But I'll ease into it as I record more and more videos throughout the future. As you can guess from the title of the video, the thing that got me into uploading videos is the fact that I am now a part of Season 2 of the John Jr. Draft League, or JJDL for short. It is a Pokemon Draft League run by one of my favorite Pokemon creators out there, John Jr. himself, and it consists of 64 individual members of his community Discord, including myself, as the coaches. As this is my first ever draft league of this caliber, I am extremely excited to announce that JJDL Season 2 will also be the debut draft league for my brand new team, the Seattle Slashers. I am from the greater Seattle area, and my favorite Pokemon is Atrocious, and so I decided that the combination of the two would be perfect for my brand. The 64 coaches were split evenly across 4 divisions, and the Slashers ended up in Landorus Division, or as John Jr. would call it, Not Division. Within each division, the coaches will use teams that they draft themselves to battle it out across a total of 8 games in 8 weeks in an effort to make playoffs and eventually be crowned the champion. Hopefully the Slashers can make quite an impactful first impression on the draft league scene, and you'll see exactly which Pokemon were drafted onto our team for its first ever showing in just a little bit. Before we get into that, I'd like to take a moment to talk about my thoughts and expectations surrounding my channel and the JJDL. If you'd rather just go watch the draft analysis, then by all means just skip ahead, but if you're interested in hearing the inner machinations of my mind and how they are an enigma, then keep listening in. Firstly, the idea of uploading gaming content to YouTube has been in the back of my head for quite some time, and I'm really thankful that the JJDL has provided me with the best opportunity in the world to debut. That being said, one of the main reasons that I'm actually uploading is because I think that it's going to help out my play. I think that if I'm commentating my thoughts live, I'm talking out loud to you guys and to myself at the same time, I'll go over all the different possibilities of each turn, and I'll make less, of those irrational and stupid mistakes. Additionally, by talking through a team builder, which may or may not be content that I explore, I think that I can get an even better grasp of what everything on my team does and why we need to bring it. Overall, the biggest reason for me to begin uploading is so I can play better and do less stupid stuff, if that makes sense. I also frankly don't have very high expectations for myself as a player. I am pretty much prepared mentally to go 0-8 across the season. The Not Division, and really the JJDL as a whole, is full of a lot of talented and experienced players who all have a really great shot at winning it all. And I'm not too sure how well I'll be able to compete when most of my Pokemon battle experience comes from being 1600 in random battles. However, that doesn't mean I'm not going to try my heart out. If the Slashers can eke out a win or two, I'll be more than happy with how my first season went, and at the end of the day, I'm just here to have some fun. Right now, I'm a freshman in college, and I've got to be honest, it's really hard compared to my high school experience, and so I figured that in the midst of getting swamped by homework and tests, I'd do something fun for myself as well, and the JJDL was the perfect opportunity to snag for a fun time. The community here is full of a lot of amazing people. I've made several friends in Not Division already, and I'm looking forward to making even more all throughout the server, so even if I end up going 0-8 this season, I'm still gonna be having fun for sure, and that's what matters at the end of the day. But yeah, that's about all I have to say. Thanks for bearing with me, and let's get into the draft analysis. So, the JJDL draft worked like many draft leagues drafts work. That means in a snake format. So the way that the snake format works is that coaches are randomly assigned a spot, number 1 through 16, and number 1 would be able to pick a Pokemon first, and then number 2, number 3, number 4, all the way down to number 16, but after that, the order would be reversed, and you would go again from 16 to 1. And this repeats until everyone has 9 through 11 Pokemon on their team, and each Pokemon also has a unique price attached to it, of course, with some of the best Pokemon being around 18 points, and some of the less consistent ones, let's just say, being around 2 or 3. each team will have 120 starting points to draft their team, and so the Seattle Slashers were able to utilize this early on because we got lucky and were randomly assigned to be third in the draft order, which was awesome because I could draft pretty much any of the top threats I wanted onto my team, of course barring what the first two picks were, but boy oh boy, I'm really happy with what I got on top. Phew, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Baxcalibur. Yes, that's right, the top mon on this team is our boy Baxi, costing me 18 points to bring in. This Pokemon received a very nice buff during the DLC, now having access to Scale Shot, a multi-hit move that will raise the user's speed in exchange for lowering their defense. This is outstanding because Baxcalibur loves the item Loaded Dice already, which allows its multi-hit moves, including Scale Shot, to hit at least 4 times guaranteed. So it can run a loaded dice set with Scale Shot, some like Icicle Spear, Earthquake for some coverage to hit steals, and maybe a setup move like Swords Dance to a very, very effective extent. It can also be a choice band attacker with his signature attack Glaive Rush, outputting massive amounts of damage off of its high, I believe 120 base power, and it even gets Ice Shard in order to have a priority advantage over Pokemon that would normally outpace it on the battlefield. Additionally, one more reason that Baxcalibur is an amazing physical attacker is because it cannot be burned at all due to its ability Thermal Exchange, which makes it very hard to slow down once it gets set up properly. I'm super happy I was able to pick this guy up because ever I saw he got Scale Shot with the DLC, I've been itching to give him a try. But that being said, there are some things that Baxcalibur cannot deal with on its own. It's a Dragon Ice type, and so 2 things that it doesn't really like are Fairy types and Fighting types. And so as a result, I'm very excited to announce 15-point Goldingo as the Slasher's second draft pick. Goldingo is a Ghost Steel type Pokemon, meaning it is completely immune to fighting, and it also resists Fairy. It can be a very effective long-term check for Fairies because it gets the move Recover for some immediate healing and can fire off its signature attack Make It Rain in return, which will deal super effective damage to Fairies. Goldingo's amazing signature ability, Good as Ghoul, also causes all status moves used on it to fail. This is huge for a variety of reasons, including allowing our team's hazards to stay on the field for very, very long. I'll go over that a little bit later when I talk about our hazard setter. Though Goldingo doesn't like ground or fire types due to its natural typing, Baxcalibur can handle both of those pretty well, especially since it has Thermal Exchange for those fire types, and it usually runs the move Earthquake. So the synergy between these 2 huge players on our team is going to be very, very immaculate this season, but the teamwork cannot stop there. Right. Next, I picked up Slowking for 14 points. I was initially hoping to get his Galarian counterpart, but at the end of the day, Glowking picked a deal with another team. That's alright, because our big boy Slowking is going to put in the work this season. It is an amazing bulky water with access to Scald to shut down physical attackers, Regenerator, which is arguably the best widespread ability in the game, I would say so anyways, and a form of momentum in its signature move Chilly Reception, which sets up the snow. This is fantastic for Baxcalibur because the snow will bolster its physical defense by an additional 50%, making it even harder to take down, and it can ruin the game plan of some teams out there that are using other weather such as sun to their advantage. Slowking is the perfect Pokemon to safely get Baxcalibur in position to claim some easy kills, and though I thought about drafting a Alolan Ninetales instead, I decided that it wasn't worth having Aurora Veil around since a lot of Pokemon get moves such as Psychic Fangs, Brick Break, things like that destroy Aurora Veil and other screens, and they're pretty easy to bring in draft formats, seeing as you can see exactly what your opponent may be bringing each battle, and I figured that just made my team too one-dimensional, too predictable. So we got Slowking instead. For the Seattle Slashers' 4th pick, we drafted up a Pokemon new to the Generation 9 frontlines in Gliscor. Our 12-point boy Gliscor unfortunately lost Roost this season, which is a considerable nerf to its iconic Toxic Stall set with Poison Heal. However, there are a few notable things about Gliscor that also provide a lot to the team's signature. Firstly, just because it lost Roost doesn't mean it can't be used defensively. Ground Flying is an amazing type combination, and I expect that there will be some games where Gliscor plus Slowking is pretty much just going to be the only defensive backbone I need in that matchup. Secondly, Gliscor, in exchange for losing Roost, received a ton of hazard setting capabilities. It now has access to Stealth Rocks, Spikes, and Toxic Spikes, all three of them, which is amazing for the team, because every time a new Pokemon switches in, if it's not wearing heavy-duty boots, it will step on those entry hazards and take gobs of damage across the course of the battle. Combine that with some potential poison shenanigans, and we're going to be putting a lot of Pokemon in range for Baxcalibur, Goldingo, and our other breakers down the road to have an absolute field day. Speaking of Goldingo, if anyone wanted to remove some of Gliscor's entry hazards from the battlefield, Goldingo is here to make sure they stay, being immune to Rapid Spin because of its Ghost typing, Mortal Spin because of its Steel typing, and Defog because of Good as Gold is absolutely crazy, and I hope to abuse this mechanic with Gliscor to absolutely hazard stack and Goldingo to completely deny removal. I hope to abuse that many, many times throughout this season. Looking at the team, I was super happy so far, but there were a lot of roles left to fill. One thing in particular was the lack of hazard control on my end, and since I just picked up the ground type Gliscor and I didn't want to have more than one ground type, that caused me to ignore some of the good hazard removers that were still up at the time, including Donphan, and I ended up drafting probably the only Pokemon on my team I'm not super happy about, and that is 8-point Sarina. I had high hopes for Sarina heading into the DLC. I was expecting it to get Triple Axle back, but sadly that was not meant to be. It did get knockoff though, which makes it an actual Pokemon, thankfully, not just a spinner. But I'm really not pleased with this pick. It kind of felt like I was forcing a spinner to come my way just because I needed it, and I don't know, I didn't like reaching so close to the bottom of the barrel so early on. Sarina does get Power Whip for some very hard-hitting grass stab, and it gets fighting coverage as well to help with steals that Baxcalibur can struggle with if it's not running Earthquake. Another positive thing about Sarina is that it gets U-turn for some decently slow momentum, and that being a grass type, it's going to be immune to powder moves such as Spore, which is always nice. Overall though, I'm still really not happy that I forced myself into picking this Pokemon, but you know what, I'll have to do, and maybe it'll impress me, who knows. It was at this point in my draft when I realized I had very little speed on my team. It had been 5 rounds of picks so far, and my fastest Pokemon was Gliscor. Gliscor still doesn't break the common 100 base speed threshold. I wanted to draft Ribombee very badly for its supersonic speed, sticky web support, and its offensive fairy stab, but unfortunately I got sniped, and after Ribombee was locked away from me, I was very nervous about the team, and I knew that if we wanted to succeed at all, the Slashers would need to find another way to quicken the pace. And so, we drafted 6-point Terra Jolteon. In this season of the JJDL, the rules allow for Pokemon who are worth less than 8 points on the board to be Terra Captains, which are the Pokemon allowed to utilize Terrestrialization. A team can have 1 to 3 Terra Captains so long as they do not amount to more than 12 points total, and each captain can Terra into any 2 set types. So, lucky enough for me, Jolteon was available and would be the perfect speedy offense for the squad, as it clocks in at an impressively fast base 130 speed, I believe. I decided to settle on Terra types of Ice and Fairy. Ice to hit ground types that normally wall Jolteon's Electric Stab, as Bolt Beam is amazing coverage. And Fairy because I wanted to be able to have a nice strong Fairy type attack, and just missed out on that with Ribombee. And you'll see that the natural Fairy type that we do end up drafting down the road is not the most offensive one, so Jolteon's strong special attacks are sure to put a dent into the enemy team. And yeah, I'm really excited about it. It can even run Substitute Calm Mind. It can be a momentum piece with Volt Switch. It's a very versatile mon, and it brings a lot of speed to the table. But Jolteon wouldn't be enough speed on its own. Sure, it's crazy fast, but in order to ensure our opponents can't always run a damage boosting nature, since their Pokemon won't outspeed Jolteon anyways, I knew I needed something else that was also fast, but not quite as fast as Jolteon. Resultantly, I was fortunate enough to pick up Lycanroc Dusk form for 13 points. Lycan Dusk is an amazing physical attacker due to its ability Tough Claws, giving it 30% more power on all contact-making attacks. It gets incredible coverage, including the especially spammable Close Combat, gets Drill Run, Psychic Fangs, Iron Head, Play Rough, Fire Fang, even Outrage, you name it. So making sets with this guy is going to be incredibly fun for me throughout this season. It has very nice priority attacks as well, including Sucker Punch as well as Stab Accelerock, which can be used to shut down dangerous looking setup threats. And speaking of dangerous looking setup threats, it can definitely be one itself because it gets Trailblaze to boost up speed and Swords Dance, so it can hit super duper hard as well. Overall, Lycan Dusk gives my team a very important speed tier and an incredible physical breaker, and who knows, potential win condition. With some speed under my belt, I felt a lot better about the team. However, the Slashers still had some very important weaknesses and some holes to fill. I took one look at my current team, one look at the move Shadow Ball, and one more look at the team. Not a single one of them could take a spec Shadow Ball, coming from a decent Ghost type reliably. Additionally, I looked at the move Crunch. Again, my team is pretty much all dead to Crunch. A third thing that crossed my mind was the need for a grounded poison type so that my team doesn't instantly lose to Toxic Spikes, since Serena sucks and it doesn't want to come in on most Toxic Spike setters. So I cured all three of these problems with one Pokemon, and that perfect fit of a Pokemon was 11-point Alolan Muck. I'm very excited to use this absolute tank on the team. Out of all 18 types in Pokemon, its only weakness is to ground, which is awesome, and due to its high HP and SpDef stats, it will serve as a fantastic special Ghost and Dark Resist. Alolan Muck gets the ability Poison Touch as well, so it can spread status, and it even gets Taunt and Haze to stop setup sweepers from taking advantage of it. Knockoff can also punish switch-ins, and it even gets a former priority in Shadow Sneak. This very important Pokemon is going to need to pull a lot of weight this season, and I look forward to seeing it perform in battle. After getting Alolan Muck, I really only had one more big hole in my mind to fill, and that was a proper Fairy type. Yes, a Fairy type isn't exactly essential on every team, and yes, I already had Terra Fairy Jolteon as a sort of fallback, but I'm very pleased to announce that 4-point Dachsbun is Seattle Slashers' next pick. I am a big Dachsbun fan, and yes, something like Sylveon kind of does the exact same thing that Dachsbun does, but to a more successful extent. But Dachsbun is certainly not a bad pickup in my eyes, as Sylveon was off the board, and Dachsbun is a physical wall, which, kind of need that at this point, since Mug and Slowking are special walls. In particular, my team has also a bit of a problem with fire types, and both of my special attackers, Goldengo and Jolteon once at Terras, don't like fire types. And although Slowking can switch in on them, I don't want Slowking to be my only reliable check, and so I got Dachsbun for its signature ability, Well-Baked Body, which grants the Dodongo complete immunity to all fire-type moves, and even raises its already bulky defense stat by 2 stages if it is hit by one. Additionally, Dachsbun excels at being a healer due to having both Wish to provide immediate healing on whatever Pokemon is in on the following turn, and Baton Pass as a form of momentum. This is greatly appreciated by some of my big threats like Baxcalibur, who can get back into the action if it was chipped down a little earlier on, as well as my defensive pieces such as Alolan Muck, who usually relies on Drain Punch for recovery or leftovers, as well as Gliscor, who recently lost Roost. On top of all of that, Dachsbun also gets Roar, I believe. Yes, it gets Roar, and that can discourage setup sweepers from trying to use it as fodder since it's generally quite passive. And yeah, it's about all there is to say about Dachsbun. I absolutely adore this Pokemon, and I definitely believe it is one of the best budget fairy types in the draft format. another great supportive Pokemon added to the roster, the team signature on the Seattle Slashers is an all-time high. But it doesn't stop there. I wanted another option to hit steel types, and I know I already said that Golden Go is an amazing fairy check, but I also wanted a backup option just in case, just kind of like Slowbro. And so I was delighted to see that this Pokemon was somehow still on the board. The second to last pick for the Seattle Slashers is the 13-point legendary bird Moltres. Since Gliscor doesn't get too many flying type attacks, Moltres essentially gave me two completely new stab types for my team in fire and flying. Its fire attacks can easily melt through steels, and flying is always nice as well to threaten fighting types, since most of my other Pokemon that can hit fighting types such as, Dachshund and Slowking are pretty defensive. Moltres can also be defensive piece too though, it doesn't have to be an attacker. It resists strong fairy and fighting type attacks that Baxcalibur doesn't like. It provides my team with another ground immunity as well. Though it is 4 times weak to rock, Moltres can negate that by running heavy duty boots. While being used defensively, it can even fire off Will-O-Wisp to cripple any physical attackers that might switch in. And I think it also gets U-turn as well for momentum if I remember correctly, so this truly is an amazing fit on this already tight-knit Seattle Slashers team. And finally, last but certainly not least, there's one more pick to discuss. I mentioned before that teams can have 1 to 3 Terra Captains so long as they're within that 12-point threshold. And our final pick is also our final Terra Captain, a 6-pointer. Bucking out with Terra Fighting, Terra Water. We have Avalugg, the table himself. Avalugg is a fantastic option for the team because of a few key things that it can do. Firstly, it is a second ice type on the team, meaning that it is also a beneficiary of the snow that Slowking provides. As they're switching to a special attacker, it can fire off a Rapid Spin and clear away hazards. And this is significant because it means that Serena is not our only removal, which is amazing. I really did not want to lean on that Pokemon very much. Their Avalugg even gets Recover for some longevity, which is quite nice as a defensive piece. As for the reasoning behind the 2 Terra types, well, Fighting is going to give it significantly more damage when using Body Press, which is likely going to be one of its main damaging attacks. And Terra Water is just one of those amazing defensive types. It turns Avalugg's initial fire weakness into a resistance, It turns its rock weakness into a neutrality when it switches out, and takes stealth rock damage as it switches back in. And it's really only weak to grass and electric, and that's just absurd as a defensive type. And yeah, that is the team. These 11 Pokemon are going to be the first 11 Pokemon ever to compete under the Seattle Slashers banner. And I couldn't be more excited about each and every one of them, except Serena maybe. Yeah. Again, my expectations heading into the battles of this season are pretty low, but I think there's a chance that I can maybe scrape a win, because if there's gonna be a team that I'm gonna pilot to a win, it's probably this one. I feel very, very confident about my draft. It's gonna be an amazing squad, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to having a ton of fun over the next few weeks using these guys. If you are as well, then stay tuned for more, because I'm definitely gonna try and upload my entire season to this channel in an effort to make some less silly mistakes, by talking stuff out loud to myself and you guys, like I mentioned earlier. And yeah, that's about all I have to say today. Let me know in the comments how I did. Your critiques are always appreciated. And yeah, stay tuned for next time. I'm not too sure how I'm gonna do outros and stuff like that, but I think I'll just give it a go. Peace out, everyone. Go Slashers, and have a great rest of your day.